While feelings of unworthiness may feel very isolating, I think it makes you actually more relatable as a leader. It makes you more approachable and surprisingly more authentic. It actually gives people reason to find you approachable and want to work with you. What a lot of people don't understand about imposter syndrome is that 80% of people actually claim to have it. It's more common in corporate structures as well as in the medical environment, as well as nutritionists and any other field where people are looking and viewing at you based and judging how you look. So modeling, acting, all of those types of careers. And what people don't know is that you actually can transform your imposter syndrome into your superpower. And so today I'm going to give you 3 steps on how to do that. So the first step is really you have to recognize that it's a passing thought. It is not your identity. These feelings of unworthiness can stem from everything from trauma in your childhood to societal conditioning. So we're not going to go into that in this video. However, if you can understand that these thoughts are merely imprints, they're not reflective of your inherent worth or your mindset. They are learned over time. And so when you reflect and acknowledge this fact, that you can actually look at the imposter syndrome as a visitor, not a resident. And that key phrase has been very helpful for me throughout my career and my life, and I think it will add value to you. So you want to treat it as such. It is merely a visitor, and it's not how you were born, or it's not who you are. The second step is you want to be really curious about the source. Many of us sort of stop at the beginning of any feelings of unworthiness or imposter syndrome. And what that leads to either is us sort of just sinking into that and feeling worse, or we actually resist and ignore it and then just move on and through. So if you can get really curious about why this feeling is coming up, you might be really surprised at what's happening. You might discover that it's actually that you're lacking skills or knowledge for a new role or a new project. And that doesn't mean you're unworthy. You might actually realize that maybe you're potentially undervaluing yourself despite evidence of success. So that's something that you can discover. You can look at your feelings of unworthiness and decide, is it rooted in fear? Or is there a feeling of being found out and undeserving of recognition? So is it not being comfortable with a reward or recognition? Or is it just not feeling prepared with skills and knowledge that you're going to need in order to take on this next endeavor? And so I think there's a really critical distinction that many people don't make, and it's the distinction between feeling unprepared and feeling unworthy. And it can really be addressed with just effort and learning and taking a growth mindset and reframing how you see yourself. And by digging into these questions and staying curious, you can actually really reframe some misperceptions you have about yourself. You have to realize that self-awareness is the foundation of change, and curiosity uncovers these growth opportunities more than anything else. And the third step that I'll leave you with is you want to take action to close the gap. So once you identify the roots of your imposter syndrome, you can take intentional steps to address them. So if it's a skill gap, you can create a plan to acquire that knowledge or the experience needed. If it's a self-perception challenge, you can seek out mentors, feedback, community, or even professionals in coaching, counseling, psychology to help build that confidence that you want to have as you move forward into this new role or onto this new project or venture. And the last one is oftentimes emotional resistance will come up, which is very normal. One of the easiest ways to overcome that, in addition to getting the counseling support and mentoring help and finding that community, is actually just to reflect back on past achievements and realize and recognize that you've done this before. You've overcome hurdles before. You've likely felt this feeling before. And so it doesn't have to be that difficult for you to look at, oh, I can do this again. This isn't my first rodeo, right? So I think it's really important as you reflect on those that you recognize that what separates authentic leaders from the rest is their actual ability to lead despite the discomfort. They likely have experienced unworthiness and imposter syndrome given the recent statistics, right? We have 80%. It's a pretty high ratio. At some point in their life, they felt unworthy or imposter syndrome, whichever term resonates more with them. And they, through trial and error, likely learned to just act in despite of it, right? They learned to act and move through it by taking action, using creativity and curiosity and or leaning on faith to get to the root of what's happening and to solve that problem. So you look at it more as a challenge to solve versus it being something inherently wrong with you. And I think that these leaders, they don't ever wait for perfection. They realize that's not even possible, but they lead courageously in its absence. And I believe that is the invitation that we have here in 2025 and beyond as a collective leadership, as we look at what's going on in the world, as we look at the kinds of leaders we're needing, as we're in the world, as we're looking at emotional intelligence, and we're looking at all these vectors as they come together. I think it's really important that we start to look at what does peeling this mask off unworthiness and imposter syndrome look like, because we all have it. Let's stop not talking about it and pretending like we don't. Let's normalize it, and let's talk about real strategies that we can all implement and use that are effective and support each other through this process, because we are human beings. We're not robots. So I think that's really important. And I'll leave you one last thought. I think as you embrace your own worthiness, it really not only allows you to connect with others on a deeper level, it disarms this facade of perfection I just spoke about. And I think that once you start to get comfortable with the idea that leadership isn't about being flawless, it's about being relatable, adaptable, and resilient, you can actually own that with confidence, and you'll inspire others to do the same.